What is up? Welcome into this live edition of Couz's Corner as we are going to recap the game between the West Virginia Mountaineers and the Kansas Jayhawks. The Mountaineers flipped the script. They did to Kansas what had been done to them the week before, or what they allowed to happen, regardless of how you view it. But the Mountaineers come from behind. They are down 11 points with, I think it was just over 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They come back and they win the football game 32-28. To go 1-0 in Big 12 play, and now they stand even at 2-2 on the season. A big win for this team, no doubt about it. But it's all good now. Should we relax? Is everything okay? As you saw by the thumbnail, Coach Brown, I took a snapshot of some of his body language during the presser. I just thought that was kind of comical. But anyway, can we relax? Is all good in Morgantown and all good around West Virginia football? That's what we'll talk about. We'll recap, how the game played out. I'll just give you my opinions, my thoughts on how it played out on some of the specific players in the game. We'll talk a little bit about some of Coach Brown's comments in his postgame presser that I found interesting. And then we'll look ahead of the rest of the season. What does this mean for the rest of the season? That's important as well. And I want to make sure I give a shout out real quick to my sponsor here, or my two sponsors, BetUS Online Sportsbook and Casino, and Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner. Thank them both for supporting the show and helping me keep the lights on. So without further ado, let's get on in. First, let me see who all's joining us here on this live edition. We have Veritax in the house. We have Level Up Highlights in the house. We have PA Mountaineer, and we have Rob W. Thank you guys for joining the show. They're the only ones who have left a comment so far in the chat. If you're watching this on X, I appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoy the show. Once the show's over, I recommend you come over to my YouTube channel, subscribe to me over there, make sure you get notified, hit the notification bell to get notified of future live streams, future uploads, and all that. And you can check out my past episodes, the ones that aren't live as well. David Cummings said we looked really good in the last 5 minutes. Yeah, when they were running the 2-minute offense, that's where Garrett Green and that offense thrives. A lot of fans want them to run that all the time. I'm not sure I'm ready to go there just yet, because number one, you run the risk of wearing your defense out. If you go fast and you go 3 and out, it puts your defense right back on the field again. They get very little break. But anyway, we can talk about that if you guys want to later. The first thing I want to talk about is some comments Neal Brown made in his press conference. Number one, he mentioned that Jordan Leslie was actually in the press box for this game. That was something I wasn't aware of. And first off, full disclosure, I did not watch every minute of this game. I was out of town on a trip yesterday. My wife and I went to a concert, so I watched most of it on my phone on the way down. She was driving. And then, so don't worry, I wasn't watching it while driving. But I watched it on my phone, and then I watched some of it in the hotel room, and then it went into the weather delay. We had to go eat, grab dinner, and then we had to go to the concert. So, and then when I got to the concert, I pulled up the ending and watched probably the last 3 minutes on my phone. I watched West Virginia's last touchdown on my phone. So I did miss a portion of that second half, a pretty large portion of it, just for full disclosure, but I did catch the highlights afterwards. But I know enough to have some educated thoughts on it here. But in Coach Brown's presser, he talked about Jordan Leslie being up in the box. Said it took the emotion away from it. The guys over at Ear Sports seemed to think there may be more to it than that. Maybe they needed to do something different so that people would get off their backs. Whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's the case. Nonetheless, it worked. So I say you keep doing it. I'm not saying the defense played great, but you won the game and you played good enough to win. So maybe you should keep doing that. Maybe he gets a better view from up there. He can see things a little better, and it does take some of the emotion out of it potentially. So, maybe that's something they should do going forward. Coach Brown kind of made a snap at the media to a degree when he kind of tongue-in-cheek or sarcastically talked about how they used their timeouts well there at the end of the game, which I agree they did. It was good use of timeouts, good clock management. And he talked about how they had done that 2 games in a row now, which is up for debate. And he talked about how the media needs to write about that. And he said, maybe you guys will write about that now, like you write about the bad use of timeouts. And he said, and I quote, I noticed that shit too, end quote. So little slap at the media there by Coach Brown on what they write and what they don't write. We all know that, let's face it. I don't know if it's him or if it's, he doesn't seem to like criticism. Let's just face it. He doesn't seem to handle it well sometimes. But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. He wasn't happy about it. I kind of respect the fact that he has that take. I mean, he's very confident in what he does. Whether we agree with it or not, he's confident in how he calls games. He's confident in his abilities, and he's going to clap back a little bit at people who think otherwise. And it could also, let's look at it. It could also be a motivational factor for the team if they see him taking up for them, taking up for how he coaches. It gives them more confidence maybe going forward as well. So maybe there's some of that in there too. Could be a motivational tactic, but I thought that was very interesting that he kind of clapped back at the media like that. And then the last thing I want to talk about is, and Random Hero, I saw that comment. He says, Couz, I never thought I would feel this way, but it's just not as fun watching WVU football anymore. You're not the first person I heard say that. I saw some other people on social media saying something similar, that it was a boring game to watch. I didn't think it was boring personally, but everybody has a right to their opinion. It wasn't the most exciting game ever, no. But nonetheless, I didn't find it boring. But I guess that's everybody's opinion. Everybody has a different opinion. But back to the comments about Green. He talked about how Garrett, they basically just, there in that last couple drives, they just let Garrett be Garrett. They let Garrett scramble around. They told him, take your first read if it ain't there. If you want to run, run. And he made some comments in there. He talked about how, I would love for Garrett to check down more, but he's just not there yet. I don't think he's going to get there, Coach Brown. And that ain't a slap at Garrett. That's just not who he is. Garrett Green is a heck of an athlete who just happens to be able to play quarterback. He has a great arm, throw the ball really hard, and is somewhat accurate with it. He's inconsistent with his accuracy, but he can be accurate with it. That throw to Gallagher was accurate. Some of the throws he made to Hudson Clement were accurate. He made some accurate throws. But he's not consistently accurate, and he'll tell you that. I mean, his completion percentage states it. He's admitted it. The staff has admitted it. But Garrett Green is a ball player. He goes out and he makes plays with his legs. He just gets it done. He's a baller. That's how he plays. And I think that Coach Brown, for whatever reason, just seems to be reluctant to let him do that. Even now, even at this stage of his career as a senior, he still seems reluctant to let him go make plays with his feet. Let him be himself. That's how he got to where he's at. That's how you won 9 games a year ago. And I just think you need to let him improvise when he needs to improvise. I'm not saying you stop working on his ability to read defenses. I'm not saying you totally get away from that. Don't try to make him a pocket passer, and don't take away his ability to make plays with his feet, because that's what makes him so good. Were it not for that, the ability for him to go make plays with his feet, they don't win that game yesterday. And by the way, hats off to Garrett. He willed that team to victory yesterday with his legs, making plays with his feet, making plays in the pass game even. They're near the end of the game. He's a baller. He's a football player, not just a quarterback. Let him be that. That's who he is. We had a guy named Skylar Howard here several years ago. That's the way he was. And Dana Holgorsen finally realized that, and he schemed the offense around it. And they won 10 football games that year, 1 year with him, a quarterback. Stop trying to make Garrett Green a pocket passer. He's number one, he's 5'10". It's not going to work. He can't see over people enough. And yes, I know there's examples out there of Drew Brees and all that, but he's not Drew Brees. Let him roll out, make plays. He throws the ball well on the run. He throws the ball well when he's rolling out. He throws the ball well in the flats and on the insides. And he did make plays across the middle yesterday, which kudos to him for that. He made some really good throws. But yes, I mean, Garrett needs to be Garrett. And I know there's a risk of injury, but if this team has any chance to win a lot of football games this year, they have to utilize his feet. They have to. There's no way around it. Let me get to this super chat here real quick before we keep moving. Thank you to Dalton Logan for the super chat. He said, thank you for the $4.99 donation. He says, after seeing the last 3 drives, there is zero reason we don't utilize the pass game more. And I agree, Dalton. I totally agree with you. They do need to pass it more, as long as Hudson Clement or somebody can continue to make plays. And as long as they call plays, pass plays that fit what Garrett does well. The slants across the middle are okay, when they're open, obviously. The flat throws to Cole Taylor, the tight end. Give Garrett reads he can make. Don't try to make him be a pocket quarterback and make 3 and 4 reads down the field, because that's just not who you are, in my opinion. But again, what do I know? I'm just a YouTube talking head on YouTube, right? But anyway, I appreciate the super chat, Dalton. Really appreciate the support for the channel, my man. And I agree, they do need to utilize the pass more. But again, do it in a way that makes Garrett comfortable and sets him up for success. But anyway, hats off to Garrett. I mean, Garrett played a heck of a football game, and I think he deserves credit for the way he played, especially those last couple minutes. Last couple minutes of that game. I'm going to pull up some stats here real quick. We're going to talk about that. But some key players in this game yesterday, Garrett obviously being one of those, but Hudson Clement, I mentioned him. I mean, you look at him on the day, he had 7 catches for 150 yards. So an awesome day for Hudson Clement. He proved that he has the ability to be a wide receiver 1. He has the ability and the talent to be the top receiver in this receiving corps, and he's only a sophomore. So he has a lot of room to grow, a lot of room to get even better. And, Coach Brown has mentioned that he has some NFL bodies in that room, and I think Hudson Clement can be one of those guys. But he's got to continue to get better. Coach Brown, talking about the press conference, he mentioned how Hudson had been putting a whole lot of pressure on himself to make plays. And Coach Brown basically said, look, man, stop putting so much pressure on yourself. You're just a sophomore. Just go out there and have fun and run around and play football. And that's what he did. Look at the results. And he did it against 2 of the better corners in the Big 12, if not in the country, yesterday. So I think he deserves some kudos for that. The wide receiver room has been criticized a lot, including by me. I didn't think they had done a good enough job getting open. They hadn't been consistently getting open and getting separation down the field. Well, Hudson Clement did yesterday. By gosh, he got himself open, and because of it, he caught 7 balls for 150 yards. Had an awesome day. One of his best days as a Mountaineer, if not the best day, outside of not getting in the end zone. But what he did, his big plays allowed his teammates to get into the end zone. But looking at Garrett's stats, Garrett only completed 50% of his passes, 15 to 30. He had a rough first half. Didn't play up to his potential in the first half. It was only 15 to 30 overall for 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, and did have 2 picks on the day as well. But what I really want to look at is how he played with his feet. Let me pull up his rushing stats here. He ran the ball 17 times for 87 yards, an average of 5.1 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. So Garrett Green had a really good day on the ground. Now, the team as a whole didn't have a great day. C.J. Urick carried it 6 times for 38 yards. Jaheim carried it 6 times for 15 yards. But I think what Kansas was doing, they were loading the box, and they were telling West Virginia, you're going to throw the football to beat us. And that's what they had to do. They had to try to throw the football, and they had to utilize Garrett in the run game to win, and that's what they did. And yes, he only completed 50% of his balls, but like Coach Brown said, in winning time, he won. He got the job done. So hats off to him. Some other receiving numbers. Cole Taylor, the tight end, had 2 catches for 18 yards, a touchdown, a huge touchdown, and that was part of that comeback. And he also caught the 2-point conversion, made a really good catch, was able to get a foot in bounds on that. I guess you call it a trick play there, where wide receiver Traylon Ray threw him the pass on that 2-point conversion, which again was part of that 11-point comeback. So great catch there by Cole Taylor. He didn't block as well on the day as he'd probably like to, which we'll get to the PFF grades in just a minute. But he did play really well in the pass game. Rodney Gallagher had 2 catches for 41 yards in that huge touchdown, the game-winning touchdown. Hats off to Rodney Gallagher. His very first touchdown as a Mountaineer, and boy, was it a big one. And then Traylon Ray had 2 catches for 20 yards as well. And Jaheim White had 2 catches for 16. Some notable names on the defensive side of the ball. Josiah Trotter had another good day. He had 6 tackles. Trey Lathan had 5 tackles. Tyron Bradley had 3 tackles, plus an interception. He had a great interception there. Took advantage of a bad decision by Jalen Daniels to pick off that pass. Anthony Wilson had a solid day with 3 tackles. Three solo. These are solo tackles. Josiah Trotter actually had 6 tackles plus 5 assisted tackles. Trey Lathan had 5 plus 5 assists. Tyron Browdy 3 plus 4 assists and an interception, and he also had a sack, by the way. So he had a great day. T.J. Jackson had another good day with a couple tackles and a sack. So some really good defensive performances on the day. Ben Cutter had a solid day. Now, I do want to, in the secondary, we'll get to them in a minute, but I do want to, remind people that Coach Brown did make changes. He did start Jacoby Spells and T.J. Crandall in that game instead of his normal starters, Garnett Hollis Jr. and Aiden Garnes. Now, Garnes ended up having to play a lot of snaps at Spear after Aubrey Burks went out with his injury. It's kind of out of position for him. Aiden Garnes only weighs about $175. So he's really not a Spear. That's really not his strength, but they were forced to use, they weren't planning on using Rodney there at all yesterday, or they weren't planning on using Rodney Gallagher in the nickel yesterday. They were going to play Aiden Garnes there. So when Aubrey went down, they had to move somebody else to Spear and put Aiden, or had to put Aiden Garnes at Spear and move somebody else to the nickel spot. So I'm not sure why it was Aiden. I'm assuming I guess his skill set it sets up best for him. But nonetheless, he was playing sort of out of position. So, hats off to him for playing well enough for them to win the game there. But yeah, the secondary still struggled yesterday, in my opinion. Made some plays. They did make some plays. They weren't terrible, but still played below average, and we'll get to that in a minute. But again, they're still trying to figure it out. Rodney Gallagher returned a couple punts. They did put Preston Fox in there for a couple punt returns as well. He fielded them. He didn't run them back. There near the end, I guess even though Preston was injured, I guess he felt more comfortable with Preston catching punts in that spot, in a tight game like that. And then Treylon Ray had a kick return for 15 yards. But anyway, for the Kansas stats, Jalen Daniels, 15 for 25, 184 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Not a great day for him, but not a terrible day either. West Virginia's, Neal Brown said the plan was to keep everything in front of them, not give up any big plays. And for the most part, they did that. They did give up a couple big plays on the ground, but they limited the big plays in the air, which is what they were trying to do. They were basically they were going to make Kansas play dink and dunk, basically. They were willing to give up 5, 6, 7, 10, even 10-yard passes at times because they didn't feel like he could do that consistently. And, the game plan worked. Devin Neal had another good day on the ground, broke 100 yards again, 27 carries, 110 yards, 4.1 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Daniel Highshaw had 72 yards and a touchdown. Luke Grimm, the wide receiver, ran those reverses. He carried the ball 3 times for 55 yards and a touchdown. And then Jalen Daniels ran it 7 times, but only for 11 yards. But a lot of that is due to the sack numbers. Their leading receiver was Luke Grimm, who caught 6 passes for 75 yards. He had himself a day. He had a touchdown on the ground, a touchdown through the air. Really good day for Luke Grimm of Kansas. Got to give a shout-out to that young man. He played really well. Lawrence Arnold caught a couple balls. Jared Casey caught 2 balls. He's a tight end. Quentin Skinner, Trevor Cardell had catches. Daniel Highshaw had a catch, and Devin Neal had a catch. Their best defensive player was probably O.J. Burrows on the day. He had 6 tackles. And then Romello Dotson and Kobe Bryant, those 2 really good corners, both had interceptions on the day. On one of those, Garrett Green took a really hard hit. I'm trying to remember. J.B. Brown hit him and really caused the throw to be way short and allowed one of those corners to pick it off. And that is one area, I felt like there were parts of the offensive line that really struggled yesterday, and I would like to see them, they need to tighten that up as well. But yeah, for the most part, there's your key stats. I'm trying to see if any Kansas did have. See, Blake Harold had a sack. Jeremy Robinson had a sack. J.B. Brown had a sack. Looks like that were the only sacks on the day. 3 sacks for Kansas on the day. So there are your key stats, player stats, team stats. Let's look at team stats. So maybe let me see if I can share this for y'all. It might be better. I have some more super chats I need to get to here. Appreciate you guys. I've got Rob a W says Neal Brown just isn't getting it done. If something doesn't change, is WVU going to be left behind by college football? They definitely don't need to get left behind. It's a great point. I'm still not 100% confident this staff, is going to turn it around. Look, yesterday was step number one in doing that, but I still think they have a long way to go because they still have a lot of holes to fix, which, again, we'll get to as we go through the show. But, again, they still have a lot to do. If they can go to Stillwater and get a win there, that'll help me a little bit, build more confidence. But I still think they have got to really go out and show that they got what it takes to compete in this conference. And so far, they've not done that by winning just one game. And Rob with the super sticker. Rob, thank you for your support. I really appreciate you. And then we've got John Teal here. John Teal with a $2 super chat says, CJ only have 51 carries, should be at 100 by now. Well, they're splitting. You got to realize, though, he's splitting carries with Jaheim White, who's also a really good back in his own right. So, I don't think it's fair to CJ to expect him to, carry the ball every single snap. And I know that's an exaggeration, but when you have somebody as talented as Jaheim, let him carry the rock some too. He's, because he has the ability at any moment to take one to the house. Where CJ doesn't really have that breakaway explosiveness. He's more of a downhill power runner. So I think you still need both of those guys. But I do understand your point. But yesterday, Kansas was forcing them to throw the football. And Kansas's run defense is good. Don't forget that. Kansas has a good team, especially on the defensive side. It's their offense that has been struggling. Kansas's defense had not been playing bad. It was their offense that had been playing bad. And, they really, in my opinion, were shutting down West Virginia's run game. So they were forcing West Virginia to beat them through the air, and West Virginia, they completed just enough balls to do that, and then also add in Garrett's scrambling ability. Jimmy McKenna says, hey, Couz, Jimmy here was at the game. Yesterday's game was not pretty, but a win is a win. I'll take it. Number 3, Hudson Clement is a dude. He's so talented. He will be special. Need to keep him. Absolutely. Absolutely. John Kelly's in the house. Thank you, John, for stopping in, my man. H. Silas, H. Bar Farkle, Gamecock Chuck, Dave Maynard. These are some people that have hopped in since the beginning. Thank you all for hopping in here. WVU Fan 13, who's a channel member here, says, a real quick comment about the Neal Brown comments. Do you know how you shut the media up? Win. That's how you shut the media up. Win. 100% right, WVU Fan 13. And I hope he continues to do that. But, they've got a lot tougher. No offense to Kansas, but they have a lot tougher opponents coming up in these next few weeks. So they've got to continue to improve. This bye week's coming at a perfect time. Give some of these injured guys a chance to heal up. Guys like Aubrey Burks. Speaking of which, glad to see Aubrey Burks back. They said he was back on the sidelines by the time the game was over. There was actually a video out there of him holding a camera, recording the singing of Country Roads. He seemed to be in good spirits. Coach Brown said all of his tests came back negative. So it looks like whatever he was dealing with on the sidelines there, which they said was described it as an upper body injury, looks like he's probably going to be okay. Now, will he be back for the Oklahoma State game? We don't know that yet, but it looks like he's going to be okay. So that's good. Got Random Hero in here. He says, box of fudge round, says GG will run more if we keep losing games. That's what he can do, and that's the offense we need. Absolutely, Random Hero. I appreciate that comment, brother. And you just gave away your identity with that comment too, by the way. John Teal, another super chat. Thank you, John. He says 75% running and 25% passing works. It beat USC. I appreciate the comment, John. It doesn't work all the time. Like I said, if a team stacks the box on you and they got more men there than you can block, it doesn't really work. So you've got to be able to throw the football to open up that running game. But I do get your point. I don't think West Virginia is going to get away from being a run-first team, but you got to remember, Garrett Green is considered a runner too. So you got to – and he might be the most explosive runner on the team. So you've got to calculate him into that equation as well, in my opinion. But back to the injuries, some of the other injuries that we saw, guys were there there was like a stretch of the game there where guys were dropping like flies, man. Obviously, had the Aubrey Burks deal. Wyatt Milam went down. It looked like maybe it was just a cramp because he got back in. Josiah Trotter got back in the game. his injury looked worse than I guess than it really was. It looks like maybe he just hyperextended his knee a little bit. He was back, thankfully. Garnett Hollis Jr. came in. He got hurt, but I saw that he came back in later in the game as well. And then TJ Crandall got that. Looks like he butted heads with another corner there on a punt, and I don't think he came back in. I'm worried that could potentially be a head deal, maybe a concussion. Not sure. Hopefully he's okay. And, thankfully they have this bye week coming up where he can get healthy. Preston Fox has another week to get healthy. Maybe he can be back. And then obviously we've got, linebacker Reed Carrico. He didn't play yesterday. He was still dealing with what I think is a concussion. Coach Brown said it was an upper body injury and he was in protocol. So that tells me that it was probably a concussion. So, he should be back, and he was playing good football too. So, he was missed yesterday, in my opinion. So he should be back by the Oklahoma State game, so that'll be a plus too. So this bye week couldn't come at a better time. The team's banged up, gives guys time to heal up. It gives them time to mentally take a break too. They've had a really tough stretch of games here, some disappointments, some highs and lows, a lot of emotional, it's been like an emotional roller coaster. So this gives them an opportunity to maybe even get away from the game for a few days. I'm sure Coach Brown may give them a few days off, let them enjoy time with their families, maybe with their friends, let them hang out, let them be, just let them be young college students for a few days and just let them get away from it for a while. It's always good to do that. It's always good to clear your head. And that way when you come back, you're refreshed, your batteries are recharged, and you may even be more motivated. Who knows? Got another super chat to read here. We have Jimmy Touchdown. Thank you for the $10 donation, Jimmy Touchdown. I'm seeing a lot of new names in the chat. I like it. I really appreciate it. My channel's been growing a lot here the last few weeks, and I really appreciate everybody's support. But Jimmy Touchdown says, the Neal Brown Apologist channel eked out a win against a horrible KU team. Let's give him another extension. Brown has stagnated the program and caused irreparable damage to WVU football. Fire him. First off, apparently you haven't watched my last several episodes. I appreciate the super chat, but to say I'm a Neal Brown apologist is totally inaccurate. Absolutely inaccurate. And if you want to go back and let people I'll just let the chat room handle that for me, because they can tell you I have been on here saying changes need to be made. They can tell you that. I'm not going to get on here and call people bums. I'm not going to call people names, and I'm not going to be outlandish and over the top with what I say. I'm trying to be I'm a fan, but I'm also trying to be come at this from a somewhat professional approach and respectful approach. That's just how I am. So anyway, it is what it is, but I do appreciate the support, and I do appreciate your opinion. I really do. I know a lot of fans feel that way. Like I said, if he's not able to turn this thing around, then I totally agree with you. But we're 1-0 in the Big 12. Let's see what happens at Oklahoma State. I'm not ready to say fire him yet. Now, if you want to make changes at other positions, if you want to make some changes on the defensive side of the ball, I'm okay with that right now. All right. Right now, I think that's where our biggest problem is on the defensive side of the ball. I was looking at team stats, I believe. That's where I was at. Let me pull these up here. Yeah, I've been called an apologist a few times. It's all good. All right, team stats. Total yards, West Virginia 443 to 431 for Kansas, pretty even. Passing yards 295 to 184. Rushing yards 148. Now Kansas obviously outlasted West Virginia there, but like Coach Brown said, by them, the defense they were playing, they had their linebackers dropping back to help with the secondary, which obviously lightened the box, and it allowed Kansas to run the football. And Kansas is a really good running team anyway. So they probably would have gotten yards on their own. But West Virginia's defensive approach allowed them to get even more yards. But they were relying on their linebackers to be able to come up and attack and be fast and get into the football. And I thought they did that for the most part, other than a few times where they missed tackles and maybe didn't get to where they needed to be fast enough. But nonetheless, Kansas outruns West Virginia by right around 100 yards. Yards per play, 6 for Kansas, 7 for West Virginia. First downs, 25-23. Third down what a close game statistically. Third down efficiency, 6 for 13 for Kansas, 7-13 for West Virginia. And West Virginia had been struggling in that category. So a better job yesterday getting off the field on third down. They were 1 for 1 on fourth down. I'm not sure that's accurate. Didn't they go for it once on 4th and 5 and not get it? Correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, Kansas was 2 for 2. Total plays, 63 for West Virginia, 72 for Kansas. 4 punts for West Virginia, 5 for Kansas. West Virginia only 3 penalties for 20 yards, so a clean day penalty-wise. Kansas had 5 for 42. West Virginia lost 0 fumbles, had 2 picks, and had time of possession of only 23 minutes. It was big play day for West Virginia. Their offense, they didn't have a lot of long sustained drives. They were just making big plays, which is kind of not the team they were a year ago. It's funny because I've seen some fans say that this team doesn't really have an identity, and I kind of agree with that at this point. Last year they were a run first, bleed the clock, pound it down your throat team. This year so far, they really haven't. I don't think they figured out who they are offensively yet. Now, I think maybe did we get a glimpse at the end of that game of what they should be? Maybe they should be more of a hurry up, let your quarterback run around and scramble, more of a 50-50 balanced team. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what direction they go. If Hudson Clement can continue to play like he's playing and he can emerge as a top guy in that receiving core, that will help out tremendously in the pass game because teams will have to key on him. Teams will now have to game plan around Hudson Clement potentially. If teams have to start game planning around a receiver, it opens things up for everybody else, and that makes the quarterback's job easier and even makes the running back's job easier. So hopefully Hudson can continue to play at that level or at least close to that level week in, week out. But anyway, there are your team stats for the game. See if we got any more super chats. Nope, no more. All right. Appreciate that. All right. Real quick, I want to remind you guys, if you're watching here, I want to remind you that if you're looking for a new sports book, look no further than BetUS Online Sportsbook and Casino. Right now, they have a very, very special bonus. You get a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit with promo code YouTube150. YouTube150 promo code gets you 150% sign-up bonus on your first 2 deposits. On your first deposit up to $2,000. And you get 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits. So you get 150% on your first deposit, 125% on your next 2 deposits, up to $2,000 with YouTube150 as your promo code. Make sure to take advantage of that offer today. A lot of exciting games in the Big 12 coming up this weekend that you can, if you want to bet and you're looking for a new sports book, take advantage of that offer today. Speaking of that, West Virginia covered the spread on this game. West Virginia was favored by, I think, 2 the last time I saw the spread on the game, and they won the game by 4. So they were able to cover the spread at home against Kansas. So kudos to the Mountaineers for doing that. And by the way, if you do gamble, please gamble responsibly, and please don't play if you can't afford it. And make sure you're 18. You have to be 18 to gamble. And if you need help, if you have a gambling problem, give 1-800-GAMBLER a call. They will help you out, help you get through your gambling problem. Or if you have a family member as well, they will help them out. Let me get me a drink of water here. Now, here's my thoughts on what this means going forward. It means you're 1-0 in the Big 12. It's that simple. I'm not getting too excited over this win. Kansas is a struggling football team. Their offense is struggling. They don't look like a really good football team right now. They struggle to win on the road. This win, it's 1-0 in the conference. It's a good win. It came at a great time. You needed it. Your backs were against the wall, and you pulled it out. You fought through adversity. You won the game. That's great, and I give the team credit for that. I give the staff credit for that. But we can't get too excited because we've seen this. Have we seen this movie before? Right? We've seen this movie before. Now we need to see a new movie. We need to see the movie now called Let's Go Beat Somebody who we're not supposed to beat, and let's go beat somebody on the road, and let's go beat somebody who's on paper better than we are. That's what we need to see. We need to see this team go into Stillwater, Oklahoma in 2 weeks and take down the Oklahoma State Cowboys. And Oklahoma State's beatable. On paper, they're better than the Mountaineers. They have Ollie Gordon in the backfield. They have some really talented players on that team. But they're having some struggles. I think I wasn't able to watch their game last night because I was at a concert. But from my understanding, they had some quarterback issues of their own, just like Kansas does. They played 2 quarterbacks, and I don't think either one of them played very well. They're having some struggles too. Utah was able to defeat them in Stillwater with their backup quarterback. Now, Utah's a good team, though, so I'm not taking anything away from them. But Oklahoma State fans are not happy with that offense right now. And, I mean, I saw the game against Arkansas. Their defense struggled in that game. So, Oklahoma State is beatable. But West Virginia can't continue to make the same mistakes they're making week in, week out, including yesterday. The secondary still, in my opinion, gave up too many pass plays. And when you look at their PFF grades, let's look at the PFF grades of the secondary. There was only one defensive back on the entire team that scored above a 65 according to PFF. And 65 is considered average. Anything below that is below average. Anything above it is better than average. Anthony Wilson had a 70.5. Hats off to Anthony Wilson. He played a good game yesterday. He's the only player, and we saw him knock a ball down in pass coverage. We saw him come up and make some big tackles. So Anthony Wilson, hats off to you, my man. You played a good game. Now, we did see some other guys make plays. We saw Jacoby Spells knock a ball down. But, he didn't play that ball perfectly, but he played it well enough to get a pass deflection. So hats off to Jacoby. But when you look at the rest of the PFF grades on the defense, and I'm focusing here on the DBs, Jacoby Spells had a 47.5, lowest on the team. Now, it was his first game starting, so I'm going to cut him some slack there. Hopefully he'll get more opportunities and he'll get better. And it's only one game, right? Jaheim Joseph at safety had a 55.3. DJ Crandall at corner before he got injured was a 55.8. Dantes Fagan at corner had a 56.1. Aubrey Burks at safety before he got hurt was a 56.5. Aiden Garnes, 58.3. Garnett Hollis, 61.7. So, look, those are not great. Those are not great PFF grades. Now, the last 2 drives of the game, they played better. Janon Daniels wasn't able to get anything going downfield, but so the DBs didn't play. They made some plays, but they still have a lot of ways to go. Coach Brown talked in his postgame presser about how they simplified things back there for them. They were very vanilla, basically. They don't want them thinking too much. But we're in game 4 of the season, so it really shouldn't be. Should we really be having that conversation in game 4 of the season? I'm just struggling with that. Now, maybe because there's so many new guys, it takes that long for everybody to adjust. I don't know. But if that's the case, then do a better job of retaining your players on the team. That's the issue I have. If you have to rely on transferred DBs year in and year out, they may continue to have this problem. You need to retain the players you have. They were able to retain Aubrey Burks. They were able to retain Anthony Wilson. Obviously, they lost Beanie and Malachi Ruff in the graduation. I understand that. But, they lost a couple guys from that secondary who transferred out as well. Now, I did videos talking about how those guys didn't perform all that great. But with one more year in the system and one more year under this coaching staff, they likely would have performed better. Hershey McLaurin actually did perform pretty well last year. They lost him to the portal. So you've got to do a better job of keeping the guys. You need to keep TJ Granell on the roster after this year. These other guys who aren't seniors, you need to keep them. Keep Jacoby Spells. Keep the guys here so that they don't, assuming that they're guys you want to keep, obviously. And in that way, when they get to be juniors and seniors, they'll have years of experience under their belt, and you'll be able to, they'll be able to perform in your system without you having to go vanilla, And if you do lose guys, bring guys in that are going to play better. If that's truly the problem. Recruiting is half the job. WVU Fan 13 says we're 4 to 5 games to be where we need to be. Absolutely. Ocho, and that's another great question. Is it coaching or is it the players? And that's my point. I don't really know the answer to that question. They want to make it sound like it's the players. Well, if it is the players, then by gosh, you're not doing your job recruiting. But if it's coaching, which I think a lot of it is, I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of the problem is the players are being put in the wrong positions at times. I think they're being asked to do things they may not be that good at. And I'm not a huge fan of the way this coaching staff moves guys around so much. I think I've mentioned this in past shows. You have guys going from safety to corner, from corner to safety to spear to the – put a guy in a position and leave him there until he gets good at it. You know, that's what frustrates me. Let a guy get good at a position before you move him somewhere else. WVU Fan 13 says we shouldn't be having this conversation in game 4, but it seems to be happening every year. It's like in the spring practices. He doesn't push hard enough, and then it takes 4 to 5 games to be where we need to be. That's okay. That was a continuation of another comment. Sorry about that. I missed that earlier. But, yeah, again, I lean more towards the coaching, maybe even the scheme that they're using. Maybe that scheme is – maybe it's hard for these guys to learn. Maybe the way they're teaching playing the football in the air is a struggle for these guys to learn. I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to throw shade at the players. It's not my intent here. My intent is to say, hey, if the coaching staff is wanting to say that, hey, it's the – we don't have any more players in the bullpen or whatever, then go get some players and get them in the bullpen. You know what I mean? That's half the job. But I lean towards it not being the issue. I lean more towards it being it's probably a little of both. But I do think there are some players in that secondary that are really talented and really good. And just for whatever reason, they're not being put in a position to succeed. That's my opinion. But back to what I was talking about. They're 1-0 in Big 12 play. That's where they want. That's where they need to be. They still, on paper, still technically have a chance to win the Big 12. Now, they have got to improve the way they're playing right now because, like I said, Kansas is by far not the best team they're going to play. They still have Oklahoma State coming up in Stillwater. They still have to play Iowa State, who's ranked. They still have to play Kansas State. Yes, Kansas State just got hammered by BYU, but I still think they're a good team. They still have to play Arizona on the road. They still have UCF coming up on their schedule. Cincinnati doesn't look like they're that bad of a team. Texas Tech. I mean, they've got some tough games coming up in this Big 12. They've got to get those. And some of these teams have really good quarterback play. So they've got to get those issues fixed in the secondary or somehow figure out a way to scheme around it. Getting in the backfield and disrupting the quarterback is one way to do that. And they did a good job of that in the first half yesterday. That's one way to help. But the problem is you can't rely on that game in, game out because there are going to be some games you go up against an O-line that's better than your D-line. It's just not going to happen. So you need those guys in the secondary to step up and play. Hopefully they can do that. Hopefully some of the adjustments they made yesterday will work. They have another week to get better. Maybe the adjustments they're making as far as putting Jordan Leslie up in the press box, maybe that'll help. We'll see. But nonetheless, they have a long way to go. So I'm not going to I was excited about the win yesterday. They needed it. Like I said, their backs were against the wall. And it was a must-win game, in my opinion. They got the job done. They were able to come out, flip the script. The complete opposite of what happened to them the previous week against Pitt. They were able to do it against Kansas. Come from behind by being down double digits and win the game with 5 minutes to go. Hard to do that. Very hard to do that. So they do deserve some kudos for that. But they got to keep it going. Hopefully they can do it, like I said, in 2 weeks in Stillwater, they can pull off a W there. I will say every game in this league is going to be a dogfight. There's not going to be a lot of blowout games in this conference. So these types of games we've seen the last 2 weeks are probably going to be what we see almost every game this year. So Mountaineer fans, take your blood pressure medicine, whatever it is you got to do, because it's going to be a wild, crazy year. So we'll see. Let me get some comments here. Let's see. John Kelly says, agreed, but the season still could go either way from this point. We will probably win a few. The odds are against us, but lose a few we shouldn't be. Exactly, John. William says, if Neal Brown loses one more game, he will be done. You think so, William? Have you heard that from somebody, or is that just your opinion? Ocho85 says, I agree. John Kelly says, I don't see him surviving a 5-7 season. I don't think they'll fire him mid-season. I really don't. To me, if he does anything better than 6-6, they'll keep him. Anything 6-6 or worse, they probably won't. That's just my opinion. I have no source telling me that. It's just my gut. But I don't think they'll fire him in the middle of the season. I really don't. I don't think that's West Virginia style. I don't think that's Ren Baker's style. He didn't do it with the basketball team last year. I don't think he's going to do it with, with the football team. Especially if they can reel off some wins here in short order. Silas says, William, I think him not kicking the field goal to go up 10-0 is just another example of his terrible. I'm glad you brought that up, Silas. I wanted to mention that. I thought that was I know we get on Neal Brown sometimes for not being aggressive enough, but it was 4th and 5. It wasn't 4th and 1. It was 4th and 5, and you had a 40. I think it would have been a 40-yard field goal or something like that, if I remember correctly. That's a very makeable kick for Michael Hayes. To me, you kick right there. Like I said, if it was 4th and 1, I don't have as much of an issue with it, or even 4th and 2, but 4th and 5, that's a tough one. I agree with you. He should have taken the points on that one. Totally agree with you. John Kelly says he will be retained another year if we make a bowl due to litigation from the NCAA lawsuit and the buyout being $9 million. And John, that is something that we need to consider. West Virginia is not a university or an athletic department that is strapped with cash or loaded with cash, I should say. They have one of the lower budgets in the country, one of the lower budgets in the conference. And now that shouldn't be an excuse for not winning games. I'm not trying to use it as that, but it could be an excuse for the university not to fire the coach and pay him a $9 million buyout, if that makes sense. There are teams who make about the same or less money than West Virginia in revenue who are winning more games. So it's not an excuse for not winning, but it could be a legit reason for them not to fire a coach and have to pay him a buyout. So great point, John. Stan Ventura says, I know on some of the plays at the end of the DBs were actually lining up close to the receivers, not 7 to 10 yards off like they were the rest of the game. Yeah, they were, I think, saying what they were doing in a few of those drives. Like they would have one guy playing zone, another guy playing man, things like that. They trying to switch it up. And I like that, It drives me insane when they're lined up 10, 12 yards off the line. And you're just giving up. Now, Neal Brown explained that at the end of the game, trying to keep everything in front of you. But now if they try to do that against a good team that has been playing better offensively, they're going to take that 10 and 11-yard gain all day long, and they'll do it all the way down the field until they score a touchdown. Now, can Oklahoma State do it? I don't know. Their quarterback plays a little suspect right now, apparently. But, you start playing Arizona with Noah Fafita. KJ Jefferson's got the ability to do it. Rocco Becht at Iowa State can do it. You start playing some of these good quarterbacks, they're going to eat you up. Now, I'm assuming the staff would not use that same strategy in those games. Obviously, time will tell, but, man, I haven't been a fan of that. I noticed it 2 years ago in the 2022 season. I was like, why are you lining up so far? You're giving them a first down on every play. It drives me insane. And the only thing I can come up with is you don't trust your guys to cover man-to-man down the field. And either put more trust in your guys or get different guys. I mean, I don't understand it. It blows my mind. But, again, I'm not a coach, so what do I know, right? All right. JDK says, I still say we won't win more than 5, and Brown should be gone end of year. G. Smyrna says, need a better safety coach and corner coach. We haven't had corners and safety since Jamal left. And right now, that is one guy, and it's Shadon Brown. Now, last year we had Dante Wright coaching the safeties, Shadon Brown coaching the corners. He's now coaching both. So, and I to me, you start there and you say, okay, what can we do here at this position? Is there a coaching issue here? And if there is, you do something about it. And if that's not the issue, if your issue's a coordinator, you look at that and you say, is this an issue? And you do something about it. Big Aaron, thank you, who's also a VIP member. Thank you, Big Aaron. He says, random question. Are you still doing Hoops from the Hills this year? I am not, Big Aaron, not that I know of. I know I stepped away from that channel. As of right now, no, I have no plans on doing Hoops from the Hills. But I am considering starting my own basketball channel down the road. Not sure if I'll be the host of it because I just don't have the time, but it will be part of my network. But great question, Big Aaron. WVU Fan 13 says, I think we all can agree that NB has not shown us anything over the last 6 years to show that he can bring a Big 12 title to Morgantown and even a playoff spot to Morgantown. As of this moment, WVU Fan 13, I agree with you. But I'm giving him time to prove me wrong right now. I mean, like I said, he just won his first Big 12 game. Let's see what he does the following week. I'm on a week-to-week basis here, man. I'll be honest with you. I'm definitely not on the climb, and I'm definitely not on his bandwagon. I'm just sitting back and watching, saying, okay, can he pull off some sort of a semi-miracle here? And do we see a much improved football team in 2 weeks? And they get on some kind of roll. That is possible. We've seen it happen back in 2003, I believe it was, under Rich Rod. I think the team started out 1-4, and then they won like 7 games in a row and got to a bowl game. So it is possible for this team to flip the switch rather, and start playing much better football on both sides and look completely different by the end of the season. It is possible. So I'm not going to quite give up hope on that. Am I confident it'll happen? No, not really, but I'm not totally giving up on it. It's not okay. Golf says Neal Brown being insured to stick around Morgantown a little longer kind of made this Kansas win feel almost the same as a loss, to be honest. And that's, there's not a lot of excitement around this win. I'll be honest with you. It's better than a loss because I just don't have an in me to cheer against my team. So I was happy to see him win the game for sure, because I know everything that their goals are still there for them potentially. Like I said, it's going to be extremely, extremely hard and extremely unlikely to happen. But the goal of winning the Big 12 is still there. All right, WV Fan 13 again says, but no matter how many games he loses, he is not going to be fired midseason. Agreed. Keep Chopping says not much decent QB play in the Big 12. So far, it hasn't been. We've, West Virginia doesn't have to play Colorado, thankfully. They don't have to play, which I don't know. I think they might be able to beat Colorado actually, because they would probably sack Shadur Sanders 15 times. But they have to play Arizona with Fafita and McMillan. That's going to be a challenge. But maybe they can find a way to neutralize, if you can just let one guy get his and not let anybody else beat you, maybe that's the strategy there. But yeah, the Big 12 quarterback play has not been as good as I thought it was going to be so far coming into the season, to be honest. It's been a little subpar. Cam Rising's been hurt now at Utah, so I'm not sure what his status is going to be. Now, West Virginia doesn't play them in the regular season, but that's just one example of one of the quarterbacks that everybody was looking to be great. Jalen Daniels has obviously been a disappointment. Garrett Green so far hasn't lived up to the hype this year. Now, like I said, other than with his legs, he made plays with his legs yesterday. But as far as his passing, he hasn't achieved his own goals in that regard. So, yeah, the Big 12 quarterback play has been subpar so far. I agree with you there. Yep, John, they're giving them 7 yards out to not get beat repeatedly. Absolutely, but I just don't think that's a long-term I don't think you have long-term success playing that way, man, because how many times did we see the New England Patriots win Super Bowls by throwing dink and dunk passes to Jordan Julian Edelman all the way down the field? You know what I mean? Think about that. You've got to be able to stop people at all levels of the defense. I understand the strategy there. And like I said, a team against a team like Kansas, it could work. If you play a team that, doesn't have super accurate quarterback play or a really accurate quarterback, it could work. But if you're playing a team who's got a quarterback who can put the ball on the money, probably won't work. William says, us true Mountaineers think about the Rich Rod days where at least one more loss. Trust me. A new staff is ready and one that will win games. Neal is a good guy. He doesn't want to be here. I'm reading that again, William, to make sure I understand your comment. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for the comment. John Kelly says, before I forget, I want to give a shout out to Beanie Bishop and Zach Frazier for having a great game against the Chargers. Thank you for that, John. A great comment. And Geno Smith looking great with the Seahawks too today. Man, he threw a deep touchdown pass to DK Metcalf in the first half that was an absolute beauty. I reshared on my Twitter account, man. He dropped that sucker right in. I mean, it was like he was throwing it into a bucket. It was beautiful. Mike G says, time to close the MB shop and start from scratch, saying that respectfully as a BYU fan. Thank you, Mike. Speaking of BYU, man, great win last night. Hats off to BYU with that stomping of KSU, man. What a game. And I've got to eat crow here. I thought BYU was going to be a bad football team, and I had them winning 2 games the entire season, and they're 4-0. And they're likely going to be ranked if they're not already. So kudos to BYU for proving a lot of people wrong. Could they make some noise in the Big 12 conference race? We will see. It's Not Okay Golf says that was year after the Tire Bowl, and we got sloshed by Maryland in the Gator Bowl. It was a fun trip, though. It was my first trip to Disney. Yeah, they got beat in the bowl game. But man, what a great turnaround. 1-4 to making a bowl is pretty good. Glad we beat Kansas, but it wasn't encouraging. I'm in the same position you are. Yep, I'm in wait and see mode, man. My name's Jimmy. I don't know what was the phrase I was going to say. I'm from the show me state. I'm from Missouri. I'm from the show me state. You got to show me. That's what I was going to say. Don Johnson, I like to use metaphors, and sometimes I get my metaphors mixed up. Anyway, Don Johnson says we got better last year every game, and they have talent. It could mesh together. Let's face it, we aren't that far off. Never give up, and I don't think this team will give up either. No quitters. Great. I love your positive attitude, Don. I love it, man. John Kelly says, I'm cheering for the program, the players in the state of West Virginia. I'm not crazy about Brown and the coaches. That's a very fair take, John. Cardinal says he can't hear it. I'm assuming everybody else can hear me, right? Oh, okay. He says an issue on his end. John says BYU is ranked. Locked On West Virginia's in the house. Says our next 5 games looking just a little easier now. Yeah, a little easier. And I like the way you made the word little big because I know what you mean there. Nothing's easy, right? Nothing's going to be easy. And like I said earlier in the show, every game in this league is going to be a dogfight. We're going to see a lot of one-score games in this league, a lot of games that are likely going to come down to the wire. At least we know this team has the grit and determination to win a game like that. They proved that to us yesterday. But man alive, why do they have to make it so hard on themselves, man? and on us as fans, right? Take your blood pressure pills, folks. It's going to be a grinding season. BYU is 22, and they deserve it. They should be. Texas Tech's going to be good. John, great point. Nick Lafferty. Silas Avery Johnson, not as good as the hype. Young Buck, not quite ready. And I tried to kind of warn people about that early in the season. They were even throwing his name out for Heisman talk. I'm like, man, pump the brakes here on that. That's ridiculous. He's a freshman. He's a true sophomore, I guess, but with no starting experience. Pump the brakes. And we really hadn't seen him have to throw the football yet, right? If you get a team who can make him throw the football, and I didn't get a chance to watch the game, but it looks to me like that's what BYU did, and he wasn't ready for that. Nick Lafferty says, long-term, will WVU be able to compete if players get paid by schools directly? Is there a world where Big Ten and SEC are a power 2? I think we're heading to that eventually, Nick. Man, that's a whole nother topic for another day, but I do think we're heading in that direction. I do, at some point. Mike says, didn't expect us to beat KSU as well. We got a chip on our shoulder. No mistake there. We were embarrassed about last year. Locked On West Virginia says, any stationary QB against us will be in trouble with TJ and T. Bradley. Totally agree. Tyron Bradley, by the way, I'm glad you said that because I wanted to go over the rest of these PFF grades. We talked about the DBs, but I didn't talk about everybody else. So let's look at the offense. The top, and not, by the way, I'm giving credit to 24/7 Sports, the guys over at earsports.com for publishing this. Hudson Clement at wide receiver scored really high, 86.2. Garrett Green, 76.4. Wyatt Milam, 75.3. Cole Taylor, 69.7. Traylon Davis, 66.4. And Tomas Remack, 66. Cole Taylor had a lower score on his blocking. It needs to improve there. Traylon Davis had a very good score on his blocking. Top defensive players. Tyron Bradley had an 83.3. TJ Jackson, 78.6. Patorma Mulba, 76.2. Anthony Wilson, 70.5. Ben Cutter, 67.9. And Sean Martin, 67.8. I'm not going to read any more here because this is behind the paywall, and I don't want to, these guys, this is their livelihoods, and but I will leave a link to it for those of you who want to go check it out. And obviously, if you're a member of 24/7 Sports, then you have access to it. And I think Rivals does something similar as well over on their site. So, let's see. Freezing Gapes, thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, hey, Couz, I love what you do. I don't know how I feel about this team. I feel like we have the talent, but something has to be done to the staff. That's you feel like a lot of fans feel, Freezing Apes. You really do, man. It's a very, very common theme amongst the fans, for sure. John Kelly says, you got those super elite 15 or so schools, but underneath those, most teams are beatable. In those two conferences, players want to start and transfer to other schools. Just look at teams like UNLV. Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, I want to give some credit here to these super chats. Sometimes I don't leave them up on the screen as long as I should, and I don't think that's fair. They pay for their comment to be read. Freezing Gapes says, hey, I love what you do. Thank you for the comment, by the way, Freezing Gapes. I really appreciate that. Again, we had one earlier by Jimmy Touchdown. He called me the Neal Brown apologist. That's okay. I'll take it. You keep paying me, I'll keep taking it. Says Brown has stagnated the program and caused irreparable damage. I don't know that it's irreparable, but it could get to irreparable if they don't do something. If it continues and they don't do something about it, yes, it could be irreparable. John Teal says 75% running and 25% passing works. He thinks West Virginia needs to run the ball more, especially with C.J. Donaldson, as with this comment here. I think C.J. should have close to 100 carries by now. I'd kind of disagree with that because, again, I think Jaheim deserves his carries as well. Bobby W says Neal Brown just isn't getting it done. If something doesn't change, is WVU going to be left behind in college football? It's definitely a fear, but they could anyway. Unfortunately, Rob, just the nature of the beast, the direction college football is going right now. West Virginia is in danger of being left behind by the bigger programs. The whole Big 12 is, to be honest with you. So, I'm of the opinion, and I may do a separate video on this, but I'm of the opinion that the Big 12 and ACC should just kick the tires on saying that they just need to do their own thing and forget about those other two leagues. That's my opinion, and have their own champion. But again, I'm not sure if there's an appetite for that among the networks or even among the universities, because it could cost them money if they do that from the college football playoff and whatnot. So, and they don't want to give that up. Dalton Logan said, after seeing the last three drives, there is zero reason we don't utilize the pass game more. So Dalton has that opinion, while John Teal thinks they need to run it more. So interesting. I love the takes, love the different takes here that everybody has. I love the differing opinions. That's why we do this, right? That's why it makes for fun conversation. William, you're exactly right. 6 years, enough is enough. And Freezing Gape says he don't know that it's Neal Brown personally. He thinks it might be some of his assistant coaches, like Leslie. And that's kind of where I'm at, Freezing Gapes. John Kelly says, what were you laughing at, Paul? Was it one of my comments or one in the chat? Yeah, G Smyrna, we do have 2 weeks to prepare for them. And they got to play K-State. That's a great point. G Smyrna makes a great point. G Smyrna 746. He says, I think we are setting in a good place for the Oklahoma State game. We have 2 weeks to prepare for Oak State. Get healthy. Oak State has to play K-State next week. And we know that's probably going to be a really good game, a really tight game. Could really take a lot out of them. The last time NB had beat OK State. Okay, I'm assuming the last time he had a bye, I think that was 2022, if I'm not mistaken, when we had to go to their place. That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that. Oh, the Troy comment. Yeah. Texas and Oklahoma, WVU fan 13 says Texas and Oklahoma leaving did put a dent in their reputation. Absolutely. We could be catching Oklahoma State at a good time. Misplaced Hillbilly. I like this comment. He says, Neal Brown said that he gave GG packages where he has choices in pass or run. So is GG making the choice to stay in the pocket? And you know, that's a great point. I think Garrett has, there have been a few times I think Garrett's made the wrong decision there where he's chosen to throw the ball when he had plenty of green grass in front of him and he could have tucked it and ran with it. And Coach Brown has even admitted that in a few press conferences that Garrett has to improve his decision making in the RPO game. Yep. All right. Well, listen, guys, I'm going to jump off here. It's been a little over an hour. I appreciate everybody hopping in here. Again, if you're watching on Twitter, please come over and check out my YouTube channel. Subscribe to me over there. The channel is growing very quickly. I appreciate everybody's support. So far, it's been a good season here on the channel. By the way, I got to give a little promo here. The Matt's Big 12 Blitz show that we have been having on Friday nights at 7. It's going to be moving to Wednesday nights at 7. Friday nights is a tough night. There are very often college football games on that night, including Big 12 games. So we've made the decision to move it to Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. Matt's Big 12 Blitz, where he will recap the previous week's games, and then he'll look at the following week's games. He'll look at the spreads. He'll kind of update you on where he is with his picks. And by the way, going into this week, he was 8-2. So we'll see how he ended up this week. So he's doing good so far. But he'll recap the previous week's games, whether he was right or wrong on his picks. He'll preview the upcoming games, make his predictions, talk about key players, the key matchups there. It's a show I'd love to grow. Come and support Matt. His name's Matt Thornsberry. He's a West Virginia fan, but he just loves college football and loves the Big 12, and he follows the Big 12. So go check out Matt's Big 12 Blitz Wednesday nights, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. It's a live show. Come join the fun. Come join the chat. Let's get this thing growing and really help Matt out. To do that, we obviously have the Golden Blue Breakdown show we're doing. Myself and Jonathan Martin. It's a pre-recorded show that we do once a week where we preview the upcoming week's game. Now, this week we don't have a game. I'm assuming we're still going to record. We will probably just kind of recap, the season, recap the Kansas game a little bit, and maybe just look at what's ahead. I'm not really sure. We haven't put our heads together on that yet, but we will probably come up with something. And Jonathan and I always have a good time discussing Mountaineer football. So nonetheless, I also have a few other things in my head that I haven't put on paper yet or haven't put to work yet that I may do on my channel here. So, be on the lookout for potentially new things. I'm really wanting to grow this thing, and I'm wanting to bring on more people, more creators, because I can't do it all by myself, but I want to get out to a wider audience. So I ask you guys to please, if I bring on these new people, these new creators, please support them as well so that we can help grow this entire brand and this entire channel, and maybe even grow it into a network at some point. We'll see where it goes. But nonetheless, I really appreciate everybody. Don't forget to like this on your way out. Whether you're watching this live or on the replay, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button on your way out. If you're in the chat box, all you have to do is hit the X and close it out. Go to the thumbs up and hit it. It really helps the algorithm. And even if you're watching it, like I said, on the replay, the likes still help the algorithm and help pump this out to more people. Please share it with your family and friends, especially if they like West Virginia football or the Big 12 or conference realignment talk, because I do a lot of that here too. And there's a lot of stuff going on around that I'm not covering right now just because I'm in football mode. But I do talk about it, especially a lot during the off season, or if it's a big story like Florida State related, or something that I can relate to the Big 12, then usually I'll do a show on it, or at least add it in as part of a live show. But nonetheless, if you like any of that, please share it. Please drop comments. That also helps. Another shout out to my sponsors, Katz, Kander, Stone Street, and Buckner Attorneys at Law, your personal injury and medical malpractice attorneys in West Virginia and Virginia. Check them out at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. And also BetUS Online Sportsbook and Casino. If you're looking for a new sports book, don't forget to go check them out and take advantage of the 150% bonus on your first deposit and 125% on your next up to $2,000. Please play responsibly. Thank you for tuning into this live show. Have a top shelf rest of your day, and cue Country Roads.